So, you've taken a brief, you've done your research, and now you're thinking about creating designs to answer the brief. Unless you're sketching to work something out or record an idea for yourself, everything you do is to communicate your ideas to someone else, to tell a story. So in this episode, we're looking at design sketching and how to improve your presentation sheets. First off, I'm going to show you my sketchbooks. The pages I'm showing you are not that good, are they? My sketchbooks are for recording ideas when they happen, on a bus or a train, late at night when I've just closed my eyes and I get a good idea. They're a design diary, but they're not meant to be precious. The reason I'm showing them to you first is because often thinking around ideas in a messy way is the first stage in the concept design process. People look through design sites like Coraflot and Behance and they see beautiful sketchbook pages of lots of super sharp designs, and then they get worried when their efforts don't even get close. But the thing is, your first sketches probably won't be all that good because you're working things out. And a lot of the time it's impossible to work things out by being tidy. So relax. Don't get obsessed with trying to make things look all designerly straight away. Do you think those guys show you their worst stuff? Of course they don't. Sketchbooks are important, but they are not how you present ideas to clients. For that, you put together a design presentation. Everything, when working towards the first presentation, is about refinement. You start off with a wealth of ideas to answer the brief, exploring lots of different avenues, and some get combined, some discarded, some improved, but gradually they get narrowed down, not to one final design. That's not necessarily your job straight away. Based on the brief, you're presenting options to the client and empowering them to choose the best one for their business, helping to guide them through the process so you arrive at the best solution together. Unless agreed, you're never presenting just one solution. This isn't any different in college. Just remember, for everything I'm about to show you, your teacher is the client. One of the greatest problems people have when sketching when they first start out is that they don't draw with confidence, and so their drawing looks messy because they don't know what they're going to draw. They try finding their way on the page, and rather than draw a single curve, they draw a series of curves. Their mark making isn't purposeful. So rather than finding your way on the page, try to visualize what you're going to draw in your head first, then draw what you're thinking, not thinking by drawing. You can rough out your drawing first, which I often do, but try to make all your outlines and the lines most visible as smooth as possible. Make sure this part of your drawing hand is clean and dry, because if it isn't, if your hand gets a bit sweaty, it can drag rather than glide across the paper, upsetting the quality of your line. If this doesn't work, or you make a mistake that you can't recover, you can use your drawing as an underlay. If your paper's a bit thick to make tracing easy, try holding your sheet up against a window. It's easy to give up too quickly on a sketch that isn't going well, but it can pay to persevere. A black outline not only makes your design stand out, but it can be used to hide a multitude of sins. Here, the line is a bit wobbly, but a black outline hides it. and there is a mistake here, but an arrow and note cleans it up, as can an editing package like Photoshop. Also, watch how you join lines. If your joins are messy, try leaving a gap, although be careful when filling in colour in Photoshop as it can flood out. If you go over an edge, try to balance it out so that it looks purposeful. If you're putting in a 3D view, make sure it's in perspective, as people can instantly tell when something isn't right. A great way to convey form before shading is by adding describing lines. If this cube's sides were bellied, for example. Adding a shadow adds a sense of realism. You can do this by drawing the shadow area first and hatching it in, or by using a hard shadow or using Photoshop and airbrush or blur tools. Make sure you decide the main light source direction and make all your shadows follow that, and adjust the darkness of the shadow for the areas most hidden from the light. Adding a background square or circle or triangle or graduated tone makes your design stand out. A badly written note can really drag a presentation down, so learn to write neatly in capital letters. If you want to show texture on a grip area, for example, then sometimes a simple rubbing on a bit of sandpaper can work well. All this can be done in drawing apps, but all the principles are the same. As long as it looks good and communicates the design intent well, there are no rules. So this episode is just a guide to what works well for me. Draw slowly. There are loads of sketching tutorials on YouTube, but the vast majority of videos speed the footage up, as I've done for most of this video, because watching someone draw real time can mean your video is over an hour long. But with the speeded up footage, you can be tricked into thinking that you need to sketch fast. Your sketching will improve if you slow down and take your time. Don't press too hard. With many drawing tools, you can vary the pressure to make your lines more interesting by going from thin to thick lines. It's known as line weight. But with many pens, pressing hard damages the tip of the pen, which doesn't improve the drawing. Your drawings will look better, and the life of your pens will be extended if you go lightly. So to make your drawings more interesting, use a variety of pens. Thin tip pens for detail and thicker pens for outlines. Draw big. Paper is cheap. If you're scanning things into Photoshop, they'll look good scaled down, but bad if scaled up. So it's far better to draw big. Fill the page with one design. Don't squash it in, but don't be mean with it either. I think we all start out drawing small, squeezing lots of designs onto one page, which in your portfolio is great because it allows you to show lots of ideas without having to flick through lots of pages, and makes your portfolio visually enticing. When presenting to a client, you would never present more than one design on one page, because if you did, it would be really confusing. You want everyone's focus on one design. You don't want a client asking, "Hey, are we talking about the one third in from the left?" "What, this one?" "No, fool! My left, not your left." The great thing about working on one idea per page is that in a design consultancy, at any point, one of your colleagues can come in and take your sketch and use it as an underlay to generate more presentation concepts. Then another colleague can do the same. and in no time at all, as a team, you've generated a whole series of presentation sheets. Another advantage is that you or anyone else can take a sketch to an engineer to discuss its feasibility. All the focus is always on the relevant concept, and all your sketches can be presentations, so it speeds things up. With this method of one idea per page, if you want to then produce good-looking portfolio pieces of the sketchbook style groups of sketches, you can scan and combine them in an editing package and adjust their positions to make a better composition. This is far more efficient than trying to draw everything perfectly on one page. People have asked me about arrows. There are lots of different styles, but really I only use two types. Thin ones for making a note and thick 3D ones to show action, like push, move, rotate. Many people want to jump straight into CAD because it's where they're most comfortable. And CAD is brilliant, but it's a tool like anything else. For clients not familiar with the design process, CAD makes your first presentation look too finished, and so the client thinks you are further along than you really are. But a good sketch is still viewed as a fluid thing. It's not yet concrete. People can still allow their imagination to fill in the gaps. Do not underestimate the power of a drawing. So, back to telling stories. You always have to consider what to communicate and who you are communicating to. Remember, you're drawing to communicate your idea to someone, because designers are storytellers. Your tutor, your employer or prospective employer, an engineer, most importantly, the client. Each person will be looking for your designs to answer their own specific questions. The engineer, will it work well and can it be manufactured? The marketeer, can I sell this? Does it have good USPs? A prospective employer, can this person do the job? But by far the most important question of all, by the most important person in the process, the client, is does this design answer the brief? And your drawing has to communicate this to them cleanly, clearly and concisely. A simple series of side views of a design tells a basic story. Adding colour and shadow and texture pads this story out more. A perspective view, a few bullet points pointing out the best features, a view that shows use, or a cartoon tells a bigger story. But you also want to tell the story in the best, most concise way, the least confusing way. You don't want to fill the entire page with explanations and cartoon usage diagrams and distracting backgrounds and fluff. Because of my language, I read left to right, and in terms of composition and storytelling, I try to make my presentation do the same, putting what I want to say first on the left, the introduction. This is usually a couple of plan views, especially a side view, and then I'm concluding my story on the right, often with a perspective view. Every presentation sheet should stand on its own, because not only do you have to present it, but they get left behind and the client may have to take it and present it to their superiors, so it still has to do its job after you've gone. So really consider your target audience and the information you are putting on the page. With presentation sheets, sometimes less is more, and sometimes less is less. People ask what pens and pencils I use, and I've noted what materials I've used throughout the video. I do have a few favourites. I really like this pen, which I use for outlining, and I love a blue pencil, but I use anything I can get my hands on. What I love about creating presentation sheets is that you can do so much with the simplest of materials that many of us already have in our homes. You don't need special pens and pencils and markers. Some people think that having the most expensive materials will make them a better artist. And good artist materials are nice to use, but you can get children's art materials that are really high quality and a fraction of the price. Here I'm using a set of crayons, some felt tip pens and a biro. You can't get much cheaper than that. I'd have no problem presenting this to a client. So remember, good presentations are not about the quality of materials you use. They're about the quality of communication, about the strength of your ideas, and how well you tell the story and answer the brief. There is no substitute for practice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and please hit subscribe, because there's much more on its way.